So I'll start with the short answer. Herbert, you and I are part of a continuum. Those that came before us and those, God willing, who will come after us. We represent all of them. When you and I succeed, our ancestors have succeeded. When you and I make it possible for our children to go further, you and I have gone further. The second aspect of this first answer is that I am a chess player. In chess, you consider every move if you want to play good chess. And you consider every move that your opposition may make. You must analyze their strengths and their weaknesses. How will they respond to your movement? And you make your movement accordingly. I did all this before I marched before the Kremlin. So now the long answer. To tell you that answer, I have to give you the story of my life. I've learned from the history of our people. I've learned from the history of our family. My uncle, Aaron Weinstein, was a socialist. Not just simply a socialist, but a major socialist leader. In 1915, he viewed the communists as a new group with new ideas, many of which he disapproved of. But he thought if he joined forces with them, if the socialists joined forces with them, he could then sway them in a more sensible direction. Leaders of the communist movement, like Joseph Stalin, had other ideas in mind. As soon as they gained power, they annihilated all those socialists who had supported them, including my uncle, Aaron Weinstein. But he wasn't the only Jew to suffer that way. There were many Jews, liberal thinkers, who did the same, only to be annihilated. What all of them had forgotten is that the virulent anti-Semitism that had permeated Russian society for centuries was still there and influencing their conduct. So I tried to learn from that too. I learned that simply playing ball with them was no guarantee of long-term security. So I decided, for many reasons, to become a physicist. And I was a very bright student. And I would confine my efforts to nuclear theory and to means to use it for the betterment of mankind. But you see, that didn't keep me out of harm's way. What had happened was I was friends with a few physicians, Jewish physicians, who were bright and up and coming in the field. What had happened was the Soviet dictator, Joseph Stalin, in his paranoia, had pictured that there's a Jewish plot to kill him. And the instrument of that plot was a group of Jewish physicians who were going to poison him. And so they arrested a whole group of some of the finest leading physicians in Russia, all Jewish. I was arrested too, but I was a doctor, but a doctor of philosophy and physics, not a medical doctor. But the net was there and I was caught up in it. Sadly enough, every one of those physicians confessed to being involved in a plot to kill Stalin. So you'd ask why? They must have been guilty. No! There was a general rule, which they were immediately informed. You have two choices. You can confess and be executed, or you can refuse to confess and we execute your entire family along with you. Since they loved their families, they confessed and were executed. There I had my first break. You see, I wasn't a medical doctor, had no skill with poison, only with nuclear energy. And so I was sent to the Gulag to live out my life in slavery. In any case, there I was in the Gulag. Now, we were fed a little crust of bread every day, a pinch of salt, and some foul-smelling water, and then expected to do vigorous manual labor. I soon realized that I would never live to finish my sentence, so I decided the following. I would go on a hunger strike and die. Well, you'd figure so they wouldn't give a hoot, so another Jew dies. Aha! No, that was not permitted. Not because they were concerned about my living or would be distressed by my dying. They were concerned that it was my free will to decide when to die. You don't do that. They decide when you'll die and how you'll die. And so what they did is they put a feeding tube down my throat and force-fed me with expensive nutrients. The people who wouldn't give me more than a crust of bread were now expending effort to keep me alive. But I had to be punished for this type of shenanigan. At least they thought it was a shenanigan. So for each of the 9 days I had been on the hunger strike, they would add 1 year to my sentence to be served in a cell below ground in solitary confinement, not to see the light of day for 9 years. So you would ask, how is it that you didn't go insane? 9 years in a hole in the ground. The answer is this. I was determined to keep my mind active. What had happened was, in their sadistic manner, they had placed me in a coffin, straw-filled coffin, with a candle on either side, replacing the candles each day so I can enjoy the surroundings. What they didn't know was that the last prisoner, I guess, in this coffin had a Russian-English dictionary tucked away in the straw. I found it. I'd never learned any English in school. It wasn't my particular concern. But it kept my mind active. And I studied the world. In fact, they even had a section on grammar. And I have a sort of a photographic memory. And I was committing this to memory. I read through the whole dictionary. Until one day, they caught me reading the dictionary. So now, of course, the dictionary was removed. Forget about the coffin. Forget about the candles. I would now be sleeping on the ground for 9 years. But in that 9 years, I was studying the English language, putting words into sentences, into paragraphs, composing compositions, all to keep my mind active. In addition, I would play chess with myself on a chessboard in my mind, playing both sides, thinking of how I moved, then viewing the world from the opponent's point of view, and moving that the way I think he would move. In addition, there had been many scientific problems that had not been solved. While I was there, in my mind, I was going to solve these problems. Almost, I hate to say it, like Albert Einstein picturing the universe while sitting there in a post office in Switzerland. I don't call myself Albert Einstein, but I became very prominent in nuclear physics. In any case, I kept my mind active. Now, one day they came to me and offered me an opportunity to get out of jail. You see, a lot had taken place during all those many years that I was in the Gulag. There had been a World War II. Nazi Germany had been defeated. An atomic bomb had been exploded in Hiroshima. And the Japanese had surrendered. Huh. Now the Russians wanted to catch up with the United States in creating an atomic bomb. Here I was, someone who was prominent in the world of nuclear physics. So what they did is they took me out of jail and brought me to a place in Siberia where they were doing work with radioactive materials. If I agreed to work there, I would be released.